Now allow me to reintroduce myself. They call me J.O.N. to the easy E.N. Know that we undefeated, y'all are beneath them speeches trying to air a grievance. But his lines are overhead, better check the air for clearance. Call the tower, this is our credit. He the heir apparent, really I've never been better. Legacy, this is forever. All the more times I've been severed, I'm raising the bar, you can go ahead and measure. Think about time for a toast, time that we welcome to go. Yo, we're just leaving, I think about time that somebody go get on their coat.
Welcome into the Fantasy Six Pack 2023 NFL Team Previews. I am joined by Mike LaPlant, and today we're going to be talking about everyone's favorite, the Houston Texans. Before we do jump into things, though, please go ahead and take a quick moment, drop a like here for us if you are a Houston Texans fan, if you've been enjoying, these team previews that we've been doing, or hell, even if you just like bald guys. If you aren't already an all-access member with us, go ahead, head on over to fantasy6pack.net/plans, and you can sign up. You're going to get access to our award-winning rankings, projections, all sorts of DFS content. Spoiler alert, I produce a lot of that. And then not to mention, you get invited to join our private Discord channel, where each one of us will be at your fingertips to ask any and all questions, even your league-specific ones. So, Mike, are you ready to talk about the Houston Texans with me, buddy?
You betcha, buddy. At least there's an exciting turnover with the roster this year.
Yeah, well, they better hope so.
So let's get into this, man.
All right, man. So we're going to start off here with the quarterbacks. And, of course, we start off here with C.J. Stroud and Davis Mills. And I think that, Stroud is probably the guy that we need to talk about here. The question really is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Can you draft Stroud in a redraft league with any sort of confidence?
Confidence, I'm going to be simple and sweet. No. Over, just the quarterbacks as rookies. I did a little deep dive as of for the past 3 years to finish as just a minimum QB 12, your minimum QB 1. You had to average about 273 points. The last two rookie quarterbacks to average that or surpass that was Herbert in 20 with 342 points and Kyler Murray in 19 with 297. So you either need top-notch athleticism or top-notch, weapons to pull this off. And I'm not knocking CJ Stroud in any way. He's a great passer coming out of college, but he doesn't have the top-notch athleticism. And as of now, we'll get into it. There's not top-notch weapons here either. So, I'm taking him as a flyer, like you did last year with Justin Fields, kind of hoping he pans out. But I don't have confidence as, your one QB in a one QB league, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm a little biased because he's an Ohio State Buckeye. And as a Michigan Wolverines fan, I was very happy that my Detroit Lions did not draft him. The one thing that I will say about CJ Stroud is I think that he's going to be a better real-life quarterback than a fantasy quarterback.
Agreed.
Think the things that he excels in, like passing accuracy, yes, obviously that does correlate to the NFL because higher completion percentage, more yards theoretically, yada, yada, yada. But he's not a guy that's going to, run for a lot of yards.
He's not getting you 500 yards on the ground.
Yeah, he's not.
He's probably not getting you 5+ rushing touchdowns. He's your prototypical pocket passer. They've died out of the league, but he's one of them. He's kind of that next. He's like a Joe Burrow. He's got that pinpoint accuracy, but even Joe Burrow had a little bit more athleticism than him too. But yeah, I 100% agree with you. He's going to be a really good real life quarterback. I think the jury's out yet still on the fantasy side of it though, to see what his ceiling is kind of capped at.
Yeah. He definitely has some ability to run. But
he did flash it in that Georgia game.
Exactly. It exists. It's just not a part of his game. I think the only time you're going to see him use his legs at all is when he's forced to run. And then that's not going to be, getting, 25, 30 yards consistently on the ground. That's going to be escaping pressure and, trying to just
picking up the first.
Yeah, maybe. So yeah. So he's a better real life quarterback, I think, than fantasy, especially for year one. We'll see what happens as he improves and gets his feet wet here. But in year one, no.
Yeah, I do like his dynasty output a little bit more, but I'm always just a little hesitant on rookie quarterbacks.
Well, yeah.
Just always.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of them that you expect to come in and just be great.
Yeah, right off the rip. And
sure,
if they are, they're usually scoring double-digit rushing touchdowns on them.
Well, yeah, that's where you mentioned Justin Fields earlier. Like a guy like that can rely on his legs, whereas Stroud's throwing the ball, and that's it.
Yeah.
So, all right, but let's go ahead and move on over to the running backs. And here we've got Dameon Pierce, who had a really solid rookie year there last year. They got a newbie here, and Devin Singletary coming over from Buffalo. Mike Boone, I think, came over from Denver. And then, of course, everyone's favorite running back, Dare you didn't get it. Ogunbowale. I didn't think I was going to get it right the first time, but hey, what are you going to do?
You got it right the second time.
Yeah, kind of. I probably still messed it up. So, last year, volume was definitely there for Dameon Pierce in his rookie season. He did miss the final 4 games of the season, but he still ended up finishing 13th in the league with 220 carries. If you were to just go ahead and project out those carries for the final 4 games, he'd finish about 5th in the league. Now, of course, that's a little bit unfair, but just to give you an example of, just how much he really did tote that rock. He's also a little bit of a factor in the passing game. He had 30 catches there. But now, like I said, Devin Singletary is in the mix. Kind of makes me wonder, what kind of production that we're going to get from Pierce this year. What do you think, Mike?
Well, no, I just want you to know the biggest thing with running backs nowadays is just there are very, very little that actually play a full 17-game season. Even when it was 16 games, there were still very, very little running backs that played a full 16-game season just due to injuries or, the fact that, the league is trending towards, a running back committee for the most part. You don't have Derrick Henry's just leading the charge in backfields anymore like you used to back in the day. So that's just, that's part of the game nowadays. The one thing I will say, though, that when I was doing a little bit digging on him was those 4 games that he missed at the end of the year. Like you said, it's not fair to project it out, but at the same time, we can still kind of, use it as a baseline to go off of. In those 4 games, the one thing that shocked me, because his biggest knock for me his rookie year was he wasn't involved in the passing game that much. Only 30 catches, not that much. So, when you're on a, struggling offense, you need that PPR value to kind of boost your floor a little bit more. And he didn't have that. Now, when I did the deep dive and I looked at Rex Burkhead, the guy who kind of came in, as that backup for Dameon Pierce for those 4 games, you take away the 4 games that Rex Burkhead had those targets in that, he was in for Pierce. Pierce would have actually had more targets on the team at the end of the year than Rex Burkhead. And he would actually led the Houston running backs in targets, which kind of surprised me a little bit because of the lack of, volume I thought he got in the passing game. But like you said, if he can just stay healthy for the most part, the volume alone will make Pierce a solid RB2 this year. 250 plus carries, plus 40 plus targets. Now that I did a little bit more research into that, what's really going to determine his ceiling is the touchdowns. If he can squeak into that kind of RB1, high RB2 status. But that all depends if you think this offense can take a leap forward to where Pierce can get that type of touchdown production. All right. And in my opinion, I don't think this offense will. I think it'll take a step forward from last year, but that's not saying very much. Last year they were atrocious. You can't get much worse than last year. So they're going to get better. I just don't think they're going to get better enough to where Pierce is going to be that high-end RB2, low-end RB1 value. So I'm kind of avoiding him unless he's my RB3 this year.
Yeah, I don't think that Singletary is going to, take enough away from him that you should be concerned about Pierce. Obviously, Pierce is, the future.
Just the passing, if anything.
Yeah, Pierce is just going to be the future of that backfield. And like you said, there are little to no workhorses any longer. And so, they have to bring in a guy like a Devin Singletary. just to help ease the workload, and
Yeah,
you're
maybe
going to have injuries and stuff. I'm sure
maybe
Mike
that
Boone is
helps
going to
him
get in there
not
as
get
well.
injured. Maybe that helps him not get injured,
Yeah,
and he
that's
doesn't
kinda,
miss those 4 games type of deal. Maybe. I mean, it's kind of like a Pandora's box thing. We'll have to see. But it is going to help kind of relieve the pressure off of Pierce for the most part, to where he might be able to play more like 15, 16 games this year.
Yeah, and he definitely has more dynasty value than he does redraft value. But even for redraft,
Just
I do
worried
like him.
about the regime though, because of the dynasty thing. You always know about with dynasty value. If this isn't the regime that drafted you, there's a little bit of worry there. But he does have the talent to at least warrant another year of looking at him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Let's go ahead. Let's hop on over to these wide receivers.
This is the fun part of this team.
And I agree. I actually, and I don't know if you're being sarcastic, but I actually like this wide receiver room. Not as in like, I think they're like a top 5 in the league, but we got Nico Collins, my dude from Michigan. John Mechie injured his, rookie season, so hopefully we get a full season out of him here. Free agent Robert Woods. Then we got Xavier Hutchinson. Noah Brown comes over from the Cowboys. Tank Dell got drafted, and then Amari Rodgers. So, like I said, man, if I'm being completely honest, I don't hate this wide receiver room. Bit biased, I know, on Nico Collins, but before he missed the last 5 games of last season, he was really starting to hit his stride, man. He's a guy I was using a lot in DFS, as a matter of fact. He was pretty cheap and putting up relatively consistent, granted not outstanding, but consistent, numbers.
But definitely outscoring his price, though, I'm guessing.
No, yeah, for sure. His last 4 games before he got hurt, he was averaging 9 targets, which was getting him about 5 catches for 44 yards, and he snuck in a couple touchdowns. That's not terrible, all things, considered there on that offense. And then I had mentioned, John Mechie missed the entire season last year. He comes in with some pedigree, was drafted in the 2nd round last year. I think that Mechie could really be the huge X factor here on this offense. But what are your thoughts here with this wide receiver room?
First and foremost, I was being a little sarcastic. In my opinion, and I get it, there's a little bit of bias here with Nico Collins, being from Michigan. But in my opinion, this is probably top 3 worst wide receiving cores in the NFL, probably tied with the Titans and Giants. And we'll get to the Titans on our next preview. But you're right. I do agree with you at this. Mechie is the X factor here. He was gone his rookie year with, I believe it was Hodgkin's lymphoma. There was some sort of cancer, but thankfully, he got cleared of it. Now he's back. We'll get to see what he is, but he's also improving. He's just yet to play an NFL snap, so I'm cautiously optimistic about it. You know what I mean? I want him at the right price. He's kind of a dart throw. Because he's got the speed, like you said, he's got the pedigree, but he has yet to play it down. So I don't want to invest too much in him as far as draft capital. Right off the bat, though, I do think it's Nico Collins' breakout season. I mean, he's finally got himself a quarterback that's not named Davis Mills. And we talked about CJ Stroud's accuracy. So I love Nico Collins this year, especially for where he's going in drafts. It's good value for the number 1 guy on this team. But as far as Mechie's concerned, he's more of like a slot receiver. He's still got to battle out Robert Woods for the number 2 spot.
Not the toughest thing in the world.
No, not the toughest thing in the world, but it's probably going to be like, a half, the back half of the year type of deal where Mechie starts to break out, I think. So like beginning of the year, it's going to be more Robert Woods, I think. And then Mechie.
If he's healthy and on the field, yes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there might be some more Noah Brown or something. But yeah.
Or Tank Dell or the ghost of Amari Rodgers.
Maybe, man. Maybe. But it'll be interesting to see. I think that there's some upside here. I think there's some potential here. I think it's a good room for Stroud to grow with. Outside of Woods, these are all fairly
young talent to grow together with. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, this is not where they have veteran leadership other than Woods. Let's move over to tight ends and let's talk about a little bit of veteran leadership.
Yes, we will.
And there we're talking now because now we've got Dalton Schultz in the room. So Dalton Schultz, he's going to be the adult in the room here. I know that this is backwards. I think Brevin Jordan is more likely to be the tight end 2 here. And then we got Tegan Quintorino, who I don't even know who that is. But, I mean, massive upgrade here in Schultz for this team. Last year they had, in my opinion, a bunch of whatevers over at tight end. Now they have a legit weapon. How do you think Schultz is going to fare here in his first season with Houston?
Massive upgrade's an understatement, in my opinion. Schultz, the past 3 years for the Cowboys, had at least 89 plus targets, 57 plus receptions. Just last year for the Texans, like you said, those nobodies. Jordan Atkins was the leader with 54 targets and 37 receptions. So, if you're one of those teams that don't want to invest in a high round tight end like Kelsey, Andrews, Schultz is a great option. Going in the back half of drafts, going at tight end 11, according to fantasy data, 103rd overall. The reason I like him this year, and he's kind of one of my targets as a tight end, if you don't get one of those guys, is because he can absolutely be one of these tight ends that can lead their team in targets and catches. Like, I love Nico Collins, but at the same time, like, Dalton Schultz is the adult, like you said, in the room. So, I mean, it would not surprise me if Dalton Schultz led this team in targets and receptions, or at the very least, second in targets and receptions. And that'd be a great value at where he's going in drafts right now.
For sure, man. Well, that's going to wrap it up here for us for our 2023 Houston Texans team preview. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and drop a like on here for us, and we'll catch you for the next one.
Peace out.